Dear colleagues, good morning. My presentation is titled CLIL Meets Positive Psychology, Integrating Social and Emotional Learning Modules into Foreign Language Curricula for Holistic Development. My name is Shelestyuk Elena. I'm professor at Chelyabinsk State University and I live in Chelyabinsk, Russia. The first slide is titled The Acculturation Assumption in Language Education. For decades, language teaching has equated learning a language with adopting the target culture, a view rooted in Schumann's acculturation theory. It proposes that second language acquisition thrives when learners move toward social and psychological integration with the target language community. This is shaped by social distance, which should be reduced through cultural similarity, positive attitudes, sustained contact, and real interaction and psychological distance, which should be narrowed by motivation, resilience through culture shock, and ego permeability, that is, openness to target language identity. Crucially, acculturation doesn't cause acquisition, but fosters key conditions meaningful contact, lower anxiety, willingness to communicate. So let's speak about the instrumental versus assimilationist divide. Schumann's model was designed for immigrants, but the majority of foreign language, second language, content and language integrated learning and language for specific purposes learners are instrumentally motivated. For them, language is, or ethically should be, a tool for international communication, not a ticket to cultural integration. Yet mainstream pedagogy remains anchored in an acculturation paradigm, shaped by well-intentioned frameworks that, despite their critical aims, often reproduce cultural hegemony. First of all, it is cultural literacy by Eric Hirsch, uh, which means to ensure shared reference, often defaults to memorizing Anglo or Western canonical facts. For example, which facts you should know to be true American, or which facts you should know, and which attitude you should have to be a true British. Next is intercultural competence by Michael Byrom, designed to cultivate empathy and critical mediation, but frequently reduced to learning about the target language, about the target culture, and nothing more. No criticism. Then native speakerism rather. So it was a phenomenon discovered by Adrian Holiday. So native speakerism continues to treat Anglo-American norms as the universal standard of linguistic legitimacy. So native speakers are the only authorities in how it is correct to speak English and other languages for that matter. Let's turn to CLIL, that is Content and Language Integrated Learning. Is it neutral pedagogy or cultural vehicle? CLIL claims neutrality but often transmits culture. In humanities, CLIL, that is Anglo-Western viewpoints, are framed as universal knowledge. In STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, CLIL CLIL learners face cognitive overload, processing complex content through an emerging language tool. Also, scientific figures and discoveries are often branded there. Ideologies and epistemologies are disguised as universal knowledge. For example, Russian Pavel Yablachkov, the inventor of the light bulb, is honored in Russia, but globally his name remains obscure, while Thomas Edison is enshrined in physics school and college textbooks worldwide. The result is that CLIL often demands cultural alignment, uninvited acculturation. So this is what CLIL is imbued with. Let us turn to immersion. Now, the immersion technique is basic in CLIL practice, but we reimagine it. Mainstream teaching still equates language immersion with cultural immersion, despite learners' instrumental goals and right to cultural sovereignty. A more ethical and instrumental vision suggests that there is linguistic immersion and it should be, but cultural immersion is unrecommended. So, as for the content, the universal content, immersion, culturally neutral content domains should prevail. For example, practical psychology, science and technology, education, global issues, for example, climate, AI, migration, etc. The result is the target language becomes a shared instrument of thought and transnational dialogue, enabling deep engagement without epistemic compromise. By epistemic compromise, we mean the compromise of the knowledge that is native, that is learned from the earliest days, with the new knowledge gained from foreign language textbooks. So the slogan should be learn the language, keep your culture. So we chose the practical psychology CLIL module as an alternative to any other culturally loaded modules. Practical psychology is a culturally neutral domain centered on universal human experiences, not national narratives. It offers emotion, empathy, self regulation, trust, and conflict resolution, dimensions aligned with social and emotional learning. It avoids culture specific symbols, uses the target language for personal expression and ethical dialogue, and serves instrumental learners seeking competence without ideological alignment. Through co constructed meaning, it integrates learners' personal histories and fosters voluntary growth in emotional and interpersonal literacy, never cultural assimilation. Tools and materials for practical psychology in language education. So we chose a tripartite framework including popular psychological texts, social psychological films, and group training exercises. And such a framework has a number of advantages. Linguistically, it cultivates live lexis, vocabulary grounded in interpersonal function, authentic grammar, and integrated skills. Pedagogically, it aligns with humanistic second language acquisition paradigm. These people, Stavik, Arnold, the representatives of the humanistic second language acquisition paradigm, which so they assert lowering anxiety, boosting psychological safety, and keeping and restoring the learners as whole persons. Psychologically, this framework addresses a critical gap, the absence of social, emotional, and interpersonal literacy from formal curricula, and fostering self reflection and metacognitive awareness. So, basically, in all the formal school textbooks, both secondary school and college and university, so-called practical psychology or socio-emotional learning are absent. If we integrate it with the foreign language, we will save time and money because it's no extra teaching load, no extra teaching hours, and no actually. So maybe the money matters will leave them out. Now outcome. All of this shifts focus from cultural transmission to co-creation, restoring the whole person and empowering learners as active agents of communication. So let me now describe our pilot, that is the pilot experiment, which took place as a 2-week Russian as a foreign language practicum in April 2024 at the Ural State Forest Technical University in Yekaterinburg. Participants there were 12 Chinese undergraduate students of linguistics, aged 19 to 21, with B1 level Russian after 3 or more years of study, enrolled through an academic exchange program. And our intervention aligned with the existing curriculum unit appearance and character traits in the textbook by Voskovskaya and Guskova. And the goal was to assess feasibility of a CLIL practical psychology module in standard Russian as a foreign language instruction. So the first part of our tripartite framework were the psychological texts. Those included short excerpts from popular psychology writers, Kozlov, Levy, so from the psychological portal Psychologos.ru, and the US science-based social emotional learning magazine Greater Good. So they focused on universal themes, for instance, trust, authenticity, responsibility, and included practically no or very scanty cultural content. So the activities there included guided reading with details tasks, vocabulary matching, brief role plays, 3 to 5 reflective journal prompts, and group discussions. So the language focus was on grammar. In the first place, it is the noun, the adjective-noun agreement, the noun-verb agreement, then the verb-object collocations, basic complex sentences, and the outcomes were that so in the first place the linguistic enrichment and development, and in the second place so actually that the learners linked concepts to personal cultural frameworks and produced meaningful utterances. So even in brief implementation, the module was feasible, ethically safe, and linguistically productive, supporting lexical imprinting and usage and identity respectful engagement. The second item was short films. They were films lasting 5 to 20 minutes. They included Nothing Happened, about two elderly people and their late life romance. And actually, it is unfinished, but there's a hope of a happy ending. The film Tea, it's an urban girl very stressed at her workplace, coming to her grandpa's old country house and learning to make tea. It is a reflection on authenticity, presence, and inner harmony. Then Moscow Vladivostok is actually a film about an impromptu en route band made up by a young musician mm, and a middle-aged worker. The young musician faced faced up with a failure in his career, and the middle-aged worker somehow supported him and made a new band with him. It's a film about resilience, intergenerational connection, and accompanied by beautiful songs. So the scaffolding included activating Lexis. The post-viewing scaffolding included questions about personal connection. That is, have you ever experienced anything of this kind? Empathy and hypothetical response. So the outcomes were that learners linked films to personal cultural frameworks, expanded lexicon, and practiced B1, B2 structures. So actually, what is most important, the thematic analysis of their journals, that is the post-activity journals that they conducted, it confirmed meaning making rooted in learners' own ethics and no cultural imposition. So basically, they were all about their own values and about their own life experience, lived experience. The next is psychologically oriented mini trainings. Uh, this is most important, perhaps most interesting, because it included role plays, games, so various interpersonal exercises like golden mirror, that is people describing the best qualities in their person who sat opposite them. Give a compliment, wish something to your neighbor, guess who described you this way. So all of these are very non-therapeutic, strength-based, low-stake, voluntary. So, and finally, syntones and conflicted genes, the last one. It's about the remarks which encourage good language, good responses, and those which encourage conflict responses. So, as for the students' integration, sorry, um, it enriched their vocabulary, grammar, it enriched their pragmatics, so it evoked polite, called for polite register and address forms. Then it also it also enhanced their pragmatic awareness and the use of evaluative lexis and guessing affirmed learners' cultural references. So it's about the description of renowned, well-known personalities. So the outcomes were the reduced anxiety, stronger rapport, B1, B2 pragmatic competence, and growth in empathy, constructive dialogue, and emotional regulation, all within regular class time. So CLIL emerged in the 1990s Europe, but bilingual content in teaching isn't new. For example, there was a Soviet president in national republics. Subjects like algebra or social studies were taught in Russian because that language had a stronger academic register. And today, CLIL is sold as neutral and efficient. It is done in English. Yet wherever a dominant language delivers knowledge, questions of epistemic authority, equity, and sovereignty arise. So we think that CLIL disguises Western worldviews as universal, leading to uninvited acculturation. At its core, this reflects a deeper problem. Learners are often asked to surrender cultural identity, especially the legitimacy of their native culture, in exchange for linguistic capital of the second language, of the foreign language. Proficiency becomes conditional on adopting foreign values, symbols, and narratives. So learners are cast as outsiders who must perform cultural alignment to be accepted. So there is post-colonial scholarship which rejects this conflation. For example, Fanon, Norton claim that language does not equal culture, and their ethical imperative is clear. Pedagogy must affirm learner identity, not impose a foreign one. That's a claim by Dalton Puffer, an important scholar on bilingualism. So, what is the way forward? Prioritize instrumental, functional language skills over cultural absorption. Reconceptualize culture and co-constructed dialogue, not inherited target language heritage. Anchor content in learners' lived experiences and universal human concerns. So our pilot showed feasibility and respect for learners' identity, but it is not the only option. The same logic supports other universal non-ideological domains such as science and technology, global civic issues, philosophical inquiry, etc. Learners can engage these themes through their own frameworks without cultural imposition, and language becomes a medium for shared human inquiry, not a portal into another nation's past, or history, or culture. It is ethically rigorous, linguistically productive, and morally necessary So the future directions and critical reflection. The next steps would involve developing CEFR A2C1 materials, integrating socio-emotional learning, training teachers in ethically bounded psychological facilitation, conducting longitudinal studies on affective, that is anxiety, empathy, and linguistic fluency lexical depth outcomes. Uh, it is scalable globally, for example, across TESOL, TEFL, CLIL, and thus socio-emotional learning replaces cultural spectacle with ethical dialogue, serving instrumental learners without ideological cost. Thank you for your attention.